But is this going to jam up a lot of people? Yes, this is going to jam up a lot of people.
And we have to, I mean, as attorneys, it is our responsibility to unjam you.
We are the Armed Attorneys. We are now talking about the final rule. The Department of Justice has just transmitted this to the Federal Register. It's going to be coming down the pipe, how this affects people who might own a pistol arm brace. Now, you might be saying, hey, Armed Attorneys, old news. We heard about this a week ago. Why haven't you talked about this yet? Why is that?
Well, okay, first of all, they released it right before SHOT Show. I mean, come on. There are lots of reasons why they probably released it right now. There's some presidential scandals to distract from. But also, I can't help but think it's not an accident. They do it right before we're all, everybody's traveling and everybody's setting up booths. So anyway, first of all, we had to go to SHOT Show, and this is a very long rule. And so it took a while to analyze it. But also, thank you, YouTube. Right?
Yeah, they're demonetizing most discussions regarding pistol arm braces. We'll see what happens to this guy. But, part of that is we have to upload these videos a little bit far in advance. We have to let them sit for a little while. We have to let the algorithms, touch and feel the video and decide whether or not they want to bless us or not. And I've got to say, these things take some time. But
yeah, and we like to make money on these videos. I mean, let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
We love doing this, but it takes a lot of time away from our law practice. It helps to defray that cost. So trying to figure out how to get around the YouTube demonetization is also something.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say is we hope that, we may not always be breaking the news, but we hope that we give you the best breakdown that is out there. That's really our goal, to get you this information. But so let's get started, because what we're talking about essentially, there's a whole lot of things going around on the internet about what this does, what it doesn't do, who it affects, who it doesn't affect. Essentially, when you really boil this down, what this rule is it's changing the Code of Federal Regulations and the definition of a rifle. That's really what it's doing.
Yes. And so I know I say this in a lot of videos. Let's back up even further. But okay, why do we get to do this? Remember, just briefly, Congress makes the laws, and then Congress delegates authority to federal agencies to make rules for the enforcement of the law. Now, this can and does make a lot of sense when you think about agencies like the Food and Drug Administration, right?
Sure.
Because we've said this before. Even congressmen I really, really like, right? I don't need my favorite congressman, who is, maybe an attorney by trade, to tell me how much rat poison is allowed to be in my food. That's not his specialty, right? I want people who study how much rat poison I can eat without, getting seriously ill, to tell me how much rat poison can be in my food, right?
Yeah.
So in specific areas, this makes a lot of sense. Congress makes a law that says, hey, you can't sell people poison food. And then the agencies go in and say, this is what constitutes poison food, right?
Yep.
However, it doesn't make a lot of sense when we're talking about a definition that Congress wrote that was dumb when they put it on the books back in the, 30s.
But especially criminal laws.
Right, exactly. But still exists. We don't need an agency to say, well, this is really what that means, because it's clear.
Yeah.
It doesn't have anything to do with anything. Why are we letting agencies interpret this in the first place? Because we have a country who've decided that this is okay until the Supreme Court really beats them down, which I hope is coming very shortly. So, yes, we have a new rule that elaborates on the definition of what is a rifle and what is a short barrel rifle. Here we go.
So the new definition under the CFR defines a rifle now includes a weapon that's equipped with an accessory component or other rearward attachment, think stabilizing brace, that provides a surface area that allows the weapon to be fired from the shoulder, so long as some other factors that indicate the firearm is designed and made and intended to be fired from the shoulder are met. So we got a couple of things there. Rearward attachment, creating some surface area. We're also going to look at some factors. So and this is what I like about criminal law, once you start deleting some of these elements, then therefore you wouldn't qualify as a rifle, short-barreled rifle. And so let's start with
what we have, but I think
let's
also
start with what we have, yeah.
What we don't have, right, which is very important. So anyone who's looking out for the Form 4999, don't worry about it. It's gone. We had tons of people call us when the rule was first proposed. And gosh, we looked at that form and it was just a nightmare, and it was really difficult to interpret. We actually had an ATF technical officer, former ATF technical officer, interpret it for us.
Yes.
And we learned a lot. And then, of course, it's gone now. It's not going to be used in this final rule. People really freaked out about it. And the ATF said, all right.
Yeah, and I think there's a good lesson for gun owners here, especially when we have proposed rules And I will tell you, I feel a little bit vindicated. Spoke to many clients, spoke to many folks who looked at this worksheet, tried running their gun through the system, who had questions about it. And I mean, up until recently, up until now and continuing, we told people to completely ignore that.
Well, we tried to understand, but we told people don't worry about it yet because who knows? Who knows, right?
And so this is a good lesson to know. When we see these proposed rules, they can change so wildly that there's no reason to kind of get in that mindset to start trying to figure out compliance. I mean, you can talk about it, obviously, be aware of the issues, keep your ear to the ground. Obviously, things might be coming down your way, but a rule's not final till it's final. And I think we are going to have some problems. I mean, there are thousands, I would say thousands of worksheet $49.99 videos on there on YouTube, and I bet we're going to be answering questions about it for years.
Years, yes.
So, but we look at that rearward attachment. So let's minus that factor. You don't have a rearward attachment. Would you have an SBR?
No.
But that's not the end of the story because we do have some rearward attachments where maybe it's not an issue.
Correct. And the ATF actually specifically exempts those that are required for the cycle of operations. And specifically, they mention, let's say you've got an AR style pistol, you've got a, what's commonly called a buffer tube.
Yeah, receiver extension,
right?
But it's required to make the gun run.
And the ATF actually says if this is a standard 6 to 6.5 inch component, it is required for the cycle of operations. That doesn't count. So that's good to know because really anything else that provides that surface area that you could, perhaps put it to your shoulder could qualify.
So, and from there, this is where we start going into some factors. So no attachment, no problem. Attachment, if it's needed to run the gun and it hasn't been modified,
should be okay.
Should be okay. But then let's say we do have an attachment. This is where the ATF starts looking at the factors. It does create that surface area that would give you the ability to shoulder.
Right.
Then they start going down the path a little bit and looking at some different factors. And let's start with the first one.
First one is length and weight. So what is the length and weight of the braced pistol? Is it similar to that of an SBR, or is it more similar to that of a pistol? And we'll have some slides that the ATF has provided flash up here. They show you examples of what they're talking about, and they have one for each of these components or each of these factors. It's pretty helpful in determining how they're going to mess with us for the most part.
Yes. Yeah. The next factor that they're looking at is the trigger position on the firearm itself. So they look at how close is the trigger to the center of the firearm with all the accessories extended? Is it more like a rifle, or is the trigger near the rear of the gun like a traditional pistol?
Yeah, they call it the length of pull.
Yeah,
right?
They call it the length of pull. Plain English, where is it located on the gun? Center, looks more like a rifle. Near the end, back of the gun, looks more like a pistol.
Right. We have the optic design. So the sights or the scope, how are they designed to be used? Do you have to shoulder the weapon to effectively use the optic? If the answer is yes, that is a factor that weighs heavily towards this is an SBR, not a pistol.
Yeah, the next one they look at is how the manufacturer markets the gun itself.
Yeah, I don't like this.
Yeah, do they promote it to be treated like a rifle? Then they're going to say, "Hey, the manufacturer said you're going to shoulder this thing. We're going to weigh that in favor of us, saying, hey, this is an SBR."
Right. Even if you've never, ever shouldered it.
Correct.
If the manufacturer has, potentially one photo on their website or in their marketing materials that shows someone shouldering it, well, here we are.
Yeah, and then the last one that comes up, what is that?
That's common use. So how is the firearm actually used in the community? This one just drives me bonkers and also it's got to drive the ATF bonkers. Not the guys obviously crafting the rule, but the guys who are going to be forced to interpret this, figure out who to prosecute, and then the lawyers who have to come in. Like, what does that even mean? Who is the community? Is it nationwide? Is it, your specific city? Is it, the fact that YouTubers have shouldered the weapon before and made videos about it?
Yeah.
It just is one of those things that is so frustrating.
Yeah. And I would say with the common use thing, if you have recorded yourself at a range day shouldering this thing, that's going to be a gigantic factor weighing in favor of that. So,
and it just when you see people selling like glass pipes, right?
Tobacco use only.
Honestly, right? Is that like if if someone has purchased a glass pipe, they have never used it for, let's assume you're a state where marijuana is illegal, such as Texas. You've never used it to smoke marijuana. However, we all know what the common use is. Like, should you be arrested for that? Should you be arrested for that? Is that a crime, Richard?
No.
It just drives me nuts.
But that's all to say. So this is what the ATF is going to be considering an SBR going forward, and therefore would require it be registered to comply with the NFA. I mean, if you wanted to keep this thing assembled the way it is now, there's a few ways to comply with this new rule. We have another video discussing, whether we think this law is going to get enjoined or not enjoined. You got to check that out. But there's a lot of people who, and there's tens of millions of people who have these devices, and they're scratching their heads of, what should I do now?
Right. So there are many, many ways to comply. We understand that many of you are sitting there saying to yourselves, I will not comply with this rule. That is all well and good. Please do not post it on your social media. If you're identifiable through your YouTube handle, do not comment on this video that you are not going to comply. Keep it to yourself. But yes, there are multiple ways. You can remove the accessory. You can just take the arm brace off. You can keep it in a way that shows that you are not intending to put them back together. You can destroy it. You can put a longer barrel on, right?
Yep,
That's a way.
Yeah, you could
when
remove this.
something's, when an item is, right, we have this fundamental issue, which is that when a firearm is born into the world as a rifle, if you want to shorten the barrel, that is an NFA item. You must register with a Form 1. If the item's born into the world as a pistol and you want to make it into a rifle, go for it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we'd have trans firearms all day that go pistol to rifle. That's fine.
But what if your pistol identifies as a rifle?
I know.
So we have our disassembly, keeping the things apart so we're not showing any intent there. There's the option to, we'll talk about registration last. I mean, destruction. You could surrender to the ATF.
That's an option they give you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, ATF.
Thank you. Go ahead and just give it to us. We'll take it.
There's another one where you could theoretically turn it over to the ATF for a individual determination. Hey, I, for whatever reason, I think this is a pistol that qualifies under the law, and I just want to get your opinion on it. I don't know that that's advisable either.
I wouldn't tell people to do that because I don't think they're in the business of not finding that things are SBRs, personally.
And then the last one, which, we'll talk about now, is the amnesty. The registering the braced pistol to qualify as a short-barreled rifle. Now, at the time of this filming, the rule has been transmitted to the Federal Register, hasn't been published yet. Once it gets published, the rule goes into effect immediately, but they give this 120-day grace compliance amnesty period. A part of that amnesty period, they're saying we're not going to require people to pay the $200 for the tax stamp itself. But I'm leaning, we have a video on this talking about whether we think this is a trap or not a trap. Original prediction, what was do you remember your original prediction?
Originally, I said not a trap.
I said I thought it was going to be a trap.
I know. The vast, overwhelming majority of our audience agreed with Richard. I still don't think it's necessary. Like, I guess trap is relative, right?
Yeah.
Like,
there you go.
This is the lawyer backtracking. Like, trap in that it is another way to build their firearm registry that we know is already very robust. Absolutely. But honestly, that is a trap. I mean, they're pretty upfront about that. That's not, like, I think trap to me would be like, you're going to register and then somehow we're going to come after you for some sort of violation of law. I don't think it's a trap like that. I think they're just like, ooh, more guns for the registry.
Yeah. I will take it maybe a step further. I think there is a trap in the sense that there's a lot of people who are going to incriminate themselves. And I'll tell you that we have clients who bought their guns their whole life. They go to a gun store, they get denied. They're screwing up the background check database. And so, or they're opening up these convictions from 30 years ago to look at the background and figure out what happened and see if it would maybe make the person disqualifying. So there is a process, they're going to do a background check of you, and let's say they deny you for whatever reason, or let's say you actually are a prohibited person for whatever reason. You get denied. You've just kind of served up on a silver platter. Hey, here's my fingerprints. I'm in possession of this item. Here's a photograph of it. Here's my name. Here's my address.
Prosecute me, please, sir.
Yeah. So what do you think about that?
Okay. Well, I hate to admit that I'm wrong. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I don't like it.
No. And it's one of those kind of, and this is the criminal defense attorney. I mean, I've had clients call, say, hey, this is a hypothetical example. I found a gun, should I go just turn it into law enforcement? Or, I think it came to me under suspicious circumstances. There's a lot of times where I'm saying, hey, I don't want you to interact with law enforcement. Go throw that thing in the lake, or, assuming that's, that isn't legal advice. But there's a lot of times where I'm telling people not to go and start interacting with law enforcement. And so my kind of fallback criminal defense attorney, that I'm worried about it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm definitely, if someone called me and said, I have this item, I want to comply, how do you recommend I comply? Despite the fact that we would make money if we got them to create a trust and register, I think my go-to advice would be remove the brace.
Yeah, remove the brace, wait for the injunction, wait for the Supreme Court.
Let's wait and see what happens. Don't pay me money. I think, would that be, again, this is not legal advice. Please see our disclaimer at the end of the video. But I mean, frankly, right?
Yeah, and I can already hear the blood boiling, because do we think that the ATF should be regulating in this area?
No.
God, no. Do we think that they should even be regulating short-barrel rifles to begin with? No, that's an infringement.
Repeal the NFA.
Yeah, no.
We're there. We're with you.
We're with you. But is this going to jam up a lot of people? Yes. This is going to jam up a lot of people.
And we have to, as attorneys, it is our responsibility to unjam you.
Yeah.
Right. We have to be able to tell people this is how you stay out of trouble.
Yeah. So, it's a tough situation, but those are your options. This is what they're talking about. And we hope you enjoy this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video.
And please continue to question and comment for us below. Until next time, we're the Armed Attorneys.